Morning and happy Friday. I'm Greg Schaefer. Welcome to the Virtual CISO Moments Infosec wrap up for Friday, August 18th, 2023. We start out today from the Hacker News. New Apple iOS 16 exploit enables stealthy cellular access under fake airplane mode. Now, cybersecurity researchers have documented a novel post exploit persistence technique on iOS 16 that could be abused to fly under the radar. Nice pun and maintain access to an Apple device even when the victim believes it is offline. This method apparently, quote, tricks the victim into thinking their device's airplane mode works when in reality the attacker, following a successful device exploit, has planted an artificial airplane mode icon and cuts internet connection to all applications except for the attacker's application. This, according to JAMA Threat Labs researchers Hugh Key and Nur Avaram. This is in a report shared with the Hacker News. Airplane mode, if you don't already know, most people do, as the name implies, allows users to turn off wireless features in their devices, effectively preventing them from connecting to Wi Fi networks, cellular data, and Bluetooth, as well as sending or receiving calls and text messages. The approach devised by Jamif in a nutshell provides an illusion to the user that the airplane mode is on while allowing a malicious actor to stealthily maintain a cellular network connection to a rogue application. The goal of such an attack then is to devise an artificial airplane mode that keeps user interface changes intact but maintains cellular connectivity for malicious payload installed on the device by other means. In other words, you don't know that they're actually still being able to connect to your phone. Miscreants are now actively exploiting critical bugs in two of Citrix's products. Not good. Both of which the business IT player says that they fixed earlier this summer. This, according to the Register. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, because we absolutely love acronyms, on Wednesday warned that criminals had exploited CVE 2023-24489, a 9.8 out of 10 on the Richter scale, no, just the CVSS scale, improper access control bug in Citrix ShareFile. Now, ShareFile is the vendor's collaboration and file sharing application, if you weren't already aware of that, and it allows enterprises to store files in the cloud or on-premises data centers. Citrix sounded the alarm after that security flaw on June 13th and warned that the vulnerability of exploited, quote, could allow for an unauthenticated attacker to remotely compromise the customer managed share file storage zones controller. Now, this flaw apparently affects all supported versions of customer managed share file storage zones. Controllers before versions 5.11.24 and upgrading to the latest version will, as you would think, fix the hole. That's what Citrix says. Now, the bug has been added to CISA's known exploited vulnerabilities catalog of stuff that should be fixed as soon as possible because it's under attack in the wild. Quote, these types of vulnerabilities are frequent attack vectors for malicious cyber actors and pose significant threats to the federal enterprise, the feds warned, and they set a September 6th deadline by which U.S. federal civilian agencies must patch the flaw. And just in case anyone needs any sort of proof that the managed file transfer services are in fact very attractive targets for criminals, just look no further than Move IT. We've seen that. We've talked about that before. So it's a big deal. The International Information System Security Certification Consortium, that's a mouthful, has changed their shortened name from ISC squared, which is why they had ISC squared because it's a mouthful, to ISC2. Now, a quote from a recent ISC2, I want to say squared. We are proud to announce that ISC squared is now ISC2. This is more than just a logo change. It is a bold step towards our mission to bridge the workforce gap with a diverse global talent pool. We remain dedicated to guiding our members through professional development and advocating for continued growth in the cybersecurity industry. Together, we will help guide candidates and be a force for good. Your future is secured, or just secured. I'm always a little bit leery about rebranding efforts. I'm not sure how this is going to change the organization at all. I mean, at least since we love acronyms. The old one made a lot of sense. It was kind of a clever way to, since you had the 2 I's, the 2 S's, and the 2 C's. This one, I'm not really sure. I don't think it has any meaning. It's just ISC2, and we'll see just how that actually plays out in the future. vCISO Services is a small, specialized, veteran owned information security firm with a calling, founded on Christian values and focused on the needs of small and mid sized businesses. Our passion is to help small and mid sized businesses gain a fighting chance in an increasingly hostile cybersecurity threat environment by providing executive part time virtual CISO services, information security risk management services, and CISO advisory services. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. It says that cyber experts say that regulators are not going far enough with their rules. More than 2.5 years since President Biden took office, his administration has moved further than any of his predecessors to impose further cybersecurity rules. But according to the Washington Post network of experts, they say his administration should be doing more. Just short of a majority, or 49%, said that cyber regulators are not going far enough. Another sizable contingent, 36%, say they're striking the right balance, and a smaller sliver, 15%, say regulators have gone too far. Their answers are complicated by the fact that not all agencies are taking the same approach to their regulations or having the same success putting their mandatory security measures in place. This month's survey is deliberately meant as a follow up to a survey with their networks a little more than 2 years ago, when we asked, quote, should the government require that companies in critical industry sectors such as agriculture and transportation meet minimum cybersecurity requirements? Back then, a vast majority answered yes. But a lot's happened since then. The administration began putting regulations in place across a range of critical infrastructure sectors and is still very much in the midst of establishing more. Now, take, for example, the Security and Exchange Commission approving some of the more controversial rules among agencies. We talked about that earlier on publicly traded companies just last month. And also this year, the administration released a national cybersecurity strategy that explicitly spelled out its approach to regulations. What's your thoughts? Too much regulation? Not enough regulation? That's a long conversation, lots of things to consider. I will concede that more regulation does help businesses kind of get that kick to improve their cybersecurity programs. But on other hands, you run the risk of too much regulation and then cybersecurity becomes just an act of compliance. We've talked about that before as well, too. There has to be a balance in some way, shape, or form. How you get there, that's a struggle that we've been working on for decades. Someone is targeting LinkedIn accounts, trying to break in with either logging credentials leaked elsewhere or with brute force attacks, this according to Tech Radar. As a result, many people have had their accounts compromised, while others have been locked out due to too many failed login attempts. Now, earlier this week, CyberInt reported that many LinkedIn users took to social media platforms such as Reddit, Twitter, or Microsoft Forums to ask for help. LinkedIn's customer support, it seems, is being overwhelmed with requests, resulting in unusually long response times. Now, some have even been pressured into paying a ransom to regain control or face the permanent deletion of their accounts, according to cyber researcher Coral Tayar. This is in a write up. While LinkedIn has not yet issued an official announcement, it appears that their support response time has, in fact, lengthened, with reports of high volume of support requests. HelpNet Security says phishing remains the most dominant and fastest growing internet crime, largely due to the ubiquity of email and the ceaseless issue of human error that is preyed upon by today's threat actors. This, according to a report from Cloudflare, should be no surprise to any of us, because while business email compromises, or BEC because acronyms, losses have topped 50 billion, corporate organizations are not the only victims that attackers are after. The real implications of phishing go beyond Fortune 500s and global companies, extending down to the small and local organizations as well as the public sector. In other words, just because you're small doesn't mean you're not a target. We need to keep emphasizing that. Cloudflare observed more email threats targeting political organizations. Now, in the 3 months leading up to the 2022 U.S. midterm elections, for example, Cloudflare's email security service prevented about 150,000 phishing emails from making their way to campaign officials. And with the United States political season just ramping up right now for the bang up 2024 elections, including for president, we're probably going to see a lot more of this. Regardless of an organization's size, industry, or sector, the report revealed that threat actors who leverage phishing campaigns have two major objectives. First and foremost, the goal is to achieve authenticity and legitimacy in the eyes of the victim. It is called social engineering, after all. Second of all, it is to persuade victims to engage or click, so to do something. Earn the trust, go ahead and do it. So let me share a couple of interesting stats from the report. Malicious links were the number one threat category, comprising 35.6% of detected threats. Identity deception threats are on the rise, increasing year over year from 10.3 to 14.2%. Attackers posed as more than 100,000 different organizations and over 1 billion brand impersonation attempts. 51.7% of the time, they impersonated one of 20 well-known brands. So if they impersonate the virtual CISO moment, I'm sorry. The most impersonated brand happens to be one of the more trusted software companies, Microsoft. Other top companies impersonated include Google, Salesforce, Notion.so, and more. I don't know what Notion.so is. I have a feeling that I'm way behind the curve on that. I'll have to check that out afterwards. 30% of detected threats featured newly registered domains, the number 2 threat category. Email authentication doesn't stop threats. 89% of unwarranted message passed your standard email test, SPF, DKIM, or DMARC authentication checks. And then finally, according to Statista, 2021 was the worst year on record since 2005. I guess that's as far back that they could do for records. It should say it was the worst year on record since 2005. So, for data compromises in the United States, similar data puts 2022 as the most costly year to date for U.S. organizations in terms of financial impact resulting in data breaches. So, bad stuff. Companies that suffer from a breach don't simply face potential damage to their reputation, they also face the prospect of significant cost to their bottom line. They're going to lose money if they get hacked. IBM highlighted how the average cost of a data breach has increased to around $4.35 million in 2022. So the preamble is all set. Breaches can be resulting in bad stuff. Don't think it'll affect your organization. You almost invariably will be wrong, even if you're a small organization. So it's not really a case of whether you'll be impacted so much as when, is what the common line says. Name a brand, chances are they've suffered a breach. This includes Google, Microsoft, Apple, and many more of the biggest names in tech who already have billions to throw at cybersecurity implementations. Now, the crux of this article, clearly it is imperative to have the best cybersecurity measures and processes in place to prevent cyber threats and minimize the risk of costly breaches. It's also crucial to rectify breaches as soon as possible, as costs increase day on day when left unresolved. The average breach costs your business $7.20 per minute unresolved. So whether you work for a small SMB, it's redundant, that's my fault, or a large enterprise, these are the best cybersecurity skills and practices you need to be aware of for 2023 and beyond. These are cybersecurity skills and practices for your employees. I would encourage you to check out that list. There's a couple of things on there that you might not think would be on the list, but certainly things that you should make sure that your employees are focused on. And that's it today from the remote studio, the alternate studio. A couple of technical problems this morning. Sorry if there seemed to be a little bit of a glitch here and there, but it looks like everything is working fine. So I'm going to go back to playing asteroids over there in the background. And as always, until then, hope you have a good day, good weekend, and we'll see you Monday. And until then, stay secure.